Hello there, and welcome back to another video. This week I'm doing fan art for a series called Shugo Chara, and the way that I kind of got the idea to do this fan art is a little bit of a story. So a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now, the YouTuber Bailey J, she posted a video turning herself into a magical girl. So magical girl in the style of, say, Sailor Moon or Sakura Card Captor or something like that, Mermaid Melody. So in that kind of a style of magical girl for magical girl shoujo series. And while I don't really want to turn myself into a magical girl, I did sort of like the idea of creating a magical girl character, so the whole transformation shebang, perhaps an animal sidekick, that kind of a thing, double personality, superhero in some sort of way. And I started sketching out some ideas for that kind of a character, and while I was sketching at the same time I was like looking up references to kind of get myself in the mood. So I was looking up images of Sailor Moon, Mermaid Melody, all the classical magical girl series, and then as I was going there as like Sakura Card Captor, and then I remembered that there was this series called Shugo Chara that I really liked for a period of my life, like late 2000s, even though I'm fairly sure that this is from early 2000s from the look of it. But I remember Shugo, and I'd completely forgotten about this series, like completely. I'd been really fond of it for quite a while when I was like 13, 14 maybe, 13 probably. And I completely forgot that it was a thing. So I just started explaining it to my friend who'd never heard of it, and just looking up images and listening to the songs, because they have these two songs that I really love that were like openings and endings. One of them's definitely an opening, the other one might have been an ending. One of them's called Kokoro no Tamago, and the other one's called Rotara Rotara. And they're really, really cute songs, and they always got stuck in my head. And I, even after I'd stopped watching or reading, or I wasn't really actively consuming anything to do with this show, I still always like went back to listen to the songs and stuff like that, because they're really, really catchy, and that kind of, they remind me a bit of Pom 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 in the way that they sound. But it's, I don't know, just look them up and take a listen, because it's, if you like shoujo anime songs, they're really cute. But so I was explaining to my friend who had no idea what this show was, and I was talking to her about the characters, a bit of the concept, the whole your inner self in an embryo. And anyway, she did a quick Google search of the characters, and obviously had to talk about Ikuto, because Ikuto is life. But she found this image, and I'll sandwich it right here, of Ikuto and Chat Noir from Miraculous Ladybug. And I've been really into Miraculous Ladybug for the past 2-3 years now. So when I saw Ikuto and Chat Noir next to each other, it kind of like, I had to stop for a moment, because what? And my brain started going around circles and circles and circles, because they have so much in common. And it's like, then I started like zooming out in my mind. It's like, how much does Shugo Chara have in common with Miraculous Ladybug, like as a show? Because I already know that like Miraculous Ladybug is sort of in the magical girl genre, even though it's, you know, French rather than Japanese. But then it's like the whole animal sidekick and transformation and cat-based sort of male counterpart, and I don't know, it made my brain do funny things, because it wasn't something I expected to kind of have turning around my head so much. But anyway, I started remembering that a lot more, and then I showed my friend who's also really into Shugo Chara and Miraculous Ladybug. She's not, I wouldn't say she's really into Shugo Chara, but she was into it when I was into it way back when. So I showed her this image, and then we both started freaking out over it. And then separately from the similarities between Ladybug and Shugo Chara, we started doing the good old freaking out over how attractive Ikuto is, even though he's a cartoon, right? But so that outfit is really something. And then I remember being so kind of, I hate to use such weeb terms, but really doki doki over him when I was 13 or so. So I decided, right, spite the bullets, do some fan art. And originally I was just going to do Ikuto, but then I figured, alright, I've been listening to these songs on repeat, I've been going to watch clips of the good moments on YouTube and all these things, might as well give Amu her screen time as well. Amu is the girl, the female protagonist. And then once I started looking up reference photos of Amu to start drawing, like before I started drawing, it hit me how cool she was. I remembered how much I love this, because she's such a kind of badass version of a magical girl protagonist, because say Usagi from Sailor Moon, her main traits outside of the whole Sailor Moon is that she's really kind, she really hates waking up in the mornings, and she likes pretty things, is sort of like her breakdown. Meanwhile, Amu, she customized her school uniform to be extra cool, she tries to stand up for herself, she's extra confident, everyone around her admires her, that kind of thing. And I remember just how badass I thought she was for adding like the little armband and the belt stuff to her uniform, because at the time that I was obsessed with this, I didn't have to wear a uniform to school, but afterwards I did. And then, like, even now in hindsight, she was in middle school, right, and I'm 21, but it still struck me as like, oh, she's so cool, oh my god. And yeah, just the longer I spent thinking about this show and working on it and looking at photos and stuff like that, because I was drawing it, the more I kind of remembered how much I liked it. And I don't think I watched every single episode that came out for this anime. This was way back when they would try to make the anime for everything as long as possible. So what I did do was I watched, I'd say 50% of the anime, and I read the manga. And that's usually how things go with me and magical girl type shows, because while I love them in a way, I also don't really have the patience to sit through the same transformation music and fight the baddie of the week. I'm really not a fan of baddie of the week type of series, and if I especially when I binge it, and that's the thing. The only reason that I can actually really super enjoy every single episode of Miraculous Ladybug is because I'm not watching them all at once. There's weeks between each episode, so I don't get really sick of the whole transformation, and also it's amazing. But if I could read like a manga from Miraculous Ladybug, I think I'd have preferred that, just because that's typically how I go. Even Mermaid Melody, I love Mermaid Melody, but again, I haven't watched the whole. Well, maybe I did, I can't remember, but I prefer the manga a lot more, because you consume at your own pace and there's less repetition, but you get the character development, the plot, and all that happens. I actually think for Shugo Chara, the manga kept going, like it went further into the story. Like I know that there was a lot of developments in the manga between actually Ikuto and Ami that weren't in the anime, or maybe they did happen in the anime, I just never found those episodes, who knows. But either way, I was very happy to go down memory lane, and also this was something that kind of was really on my mind while I was working on this, because I was obsessed with Shugo Chara when I was like 13 or so, and I haven't really touched Shugo Chara besides maybe occasionally listening to those songs I mentioned since I was 13. And even then, the last time I heard those songs must have been over 3 years ago, like maybe even over 4 years ago. So I've been really disconnected from this series. And I remember wanting to do fan art for it, especially of Ikuto, way back when I was 13, and I just kind of remembered being, I don't think it's posted, or I don't even think I have it saved anywhere, because I was just sort of so frustrated that I couldn't get the level of Bishonen that I needed, the level of like pretty boy Ikuto that I wanted, because he was such a, like, he was cheeky, he was flirty, he was confident, he was older, he was like the whole everything you could ever want kind of thing, and I couldn't really do him justice, and it felt kind of frustrating at the time. And now I just decided on a whim that I wanted to do some fan art, and then I picked a jumping pose and slapped him on there, and then immediately, like, I even, when I sent the finished version of this to one of my friends, she was talking about how she saw how nice the skin looked, and because it's a bit tanned, I haven't started shading it just yet, but I'm kind of pretty proud of the way I did Ikuto's skin. And even then, whenever I step back and look at it, I really, like, it's tooting my own horn, but like, those abs though, like, I really wouldn't have imagined myself being able to draw something like that way back when I was 13, and it's really hit me of, like, if 13-year-old me could see the kinds of things that I could draw now, like, I don't think she would believe that I was the one to draw them, you know. And it's hit me recently a lot that I've been feeling that way about my art. Like, I'm never completely satisfied, because you never want to be satisfied to the point where you're not striving to improve anymore. I know there's a lot of things that I need to get better at. I need to get a lot better at moving things in 3 dimensions. I need to get better at making interesting compositions. I need to get better at, like, playing with perspective and stuff like that. But to the point of doing pin-up things and drawing characters, say, like, without any funky perspective or interacting too weirdly or with too much movement, say, like, I think I'm pretty good. I think I've kind of reached the point where I can reliably, to some extent, draw everything that I might want to draw when it comes to people, like characters. Like, I'm not that good at animals or plants or environments, stuff like that yet. I'm working at it. But when it comes to drawing characters and sort of pin-up poses, I think I've got that down. And so just this whole, it's a very simple kind of scene that I've put together of just Ikuto mid-jump and then Amu just sort of standing there leaning and doing the whole peace fingers. And even something like this plaid pattern on her socks and her skirt, because I did all that concept art for my friend's original novel series. They all have plaid either trousers or skirts for the uniform, and I got kind of excited. Like, this was something I freehanded kind of quick. It wasn't like a texture that I liquefied to kind of fit what it was, because I didn't feel like making it that complex. It's not exactly the plaid pattern that they used in the anime, but in my defense, the plaid pattern that they used in the anime, and trust me when I say this because I studied a lot of the reference photos, it doesn't follow the shape. They just kind of slapped it on top as a texture without making it follow the shape, and I think that's cheating. Mine follows the shape, at least. Ha but yeah, it's just, I don't know, I feel really proud of the way that this turned out, and the colours look cool, and the background's not really a background, it's just like some patterns and stuff. I don't know, I feel like this kind of, there's a polka dot pattern and an X pattern on the yellow and the diamond shape. I feel like the diamond shape is a nice frame, and then the little polka dots, and originally I want the polka dots to just be grey, but then when I looked for a polka dot pattern, that was the one that I got, and I was like, yeah, you know what, that works, that looks nice. And the X's, it was a little bit more trouble to get an X pattern that I kind of wanted, because I wanted a bit of a blockier X. But then, what you saw me earlier in the video, I was like googling it, and then I went to this website that did like wallpaper, and then I managed to get kind of their raw file for it, and it had like these ruler thing on the guide that I had to cut off, and when I made it larger, it was black as well, so I did the whole channels. I think I'll do a tutorial about it, maybe, if anyone's curious about how to get kind of a white something out of a black on white something in Photoshop. But anyway, when I grabbed the X's, they were a bit too cluttered, and then I was gonna just nix them entirely, but then it's like, alright, they're cool X's, they're just too close together, what if I take out every other one? And so then you saw me like go every other one, selecting it to delete it. And here's what I'm finally getting to Ikuto's skin, and I was having this conversation just this morning with my friend that she was complimenting the skin, and it's sort of like doing anywhere from really pale skin to, I would say, mid-brown skin, say maybe what like a South American person or an Indian person might have in terms of skin tone. That kind of follows the same sort of theory behind it in terms of what colours you pick and how you shade it. When it comes to doing darker than that skin, like actual African dark skin, that's where it gets a little bit complicated in terms of your colour picks for shadows and highlights. I think that the highlights get a lot more desaturated when your skin's darker, and I need to practice that a lot more. But when it comes to lighter to tanner skin within the upper, not darker range of skin tones, I think I've got that down pretty well. I can still do dark skin, of course, and I have done dark skin, but I just feel like it's something that I need to practice more, because the way I memorize how to color something is what ratios you do in terms of hue shifting and value shifting, and as long as the values stay within this certain range in grayscale, like there's a lot more contrast when you have darker skin, because the darks are darker and the lights end up being lighter in comparison. And anyway, it's just a lot of colour theory things that I practice, but I'm pretty happy with the way that I colour skin, and especially the way Ikuto's skin turned out. Like, I'm especially fond of his shoulder. Like, one might think I'd be gushing over the abs again, but the abs, I'm really happy with the line work that I did for the abs, but in terms of the colouring, that's just, you know, it feels like it's just alright. But the way that I did his shoulder, the shoulder that's more towards Amu, I feel like it's just, it does a really good job of denoting his the musculature of the shoulder while still looking dope. So yeah, what else do I have to say about this? The scarf was a kind of last minute addition. There's one reference photo that shows Ikuto in his kind of fighting getup that has this kind of scarf thing. Honestly, I really don't remember if he has it or what it's about, what it does in terms of the context of the show, but I figured it might be nice to add a little bit more movement, and it also might be a good contrast to, because his foot is in front of the little yellow frame that I added, it might be nice to have the scarf go behind the yellow frame, so it adds a little bit more interest in terms of that. What else? I like Amu's hairstyle. I think it came out pretty nice. It was a little bit complicated for both Amu and Ikuto to kind of figure out the hairstyles, because in the manga as well as in the anime, the tops of their heads are just sort of rounded and you can't really see where the hair comes from. Like both of them would have had like blocky bangs, but they drew them in this little style that makes it seem so it's not a blocky bang, but where's the bang coming from? It's not like a side bang, and it's not like they don't have bangs, so it was a little bit kind of confusing to try to figure out just because of the way. And also in all the images that Amu had part of her hair up, and like the most common one was the side half pony, it doesn't show in the line work at all that some of her hair is being pulled back, and that's where you kind of see kind of the shortcomings of the art in this show. But at the same time, you know, I'm a big girl, I can figure it out, I know how hair works, or something like that. Later on, I didn't record this part, but later on I ended up lifting up one of her feet because my friend pointed out that she could not possibly have her legs positioned like that while her feet are like side to side, like next to each other, so I liquefied it after. And you'll see in the final image that one of her feet is further back from the other one. And right now I'm just going through to add some kind of adjustments, some level adjustments, some individual color adjustments. I think it's called select color actually. Gradient map, hue saturation, just basic things to try to enhance the whole thing a bit, but it's nothing too drastic. And I would say that this is about done. Thank you very much for watching. Again, I don't own these characters, but it's fun fan art. I'll put links in the description to my Instagram and stuff like that if you want to check me out there, and I'll see you next week.